So this will be a podcast where I just go blue, red, purple, white. The bulb's blowing up. How are you?
Good, man. More importantly, how are you? How are you feeling?
I'm getting there. I'm 3.5 months. It's like I've booked myself in for like a full checkup with the doctors on the 14th of November. I always avoid those. I don't know how you are with doctors. I'm like, I'll be fine. Unless an arm falls off, I'm all good.
Yeah. I'm happy to hear it. I'm similar with doctors, but I also have, of course I live in Canada now, but I'm from the US, so I have that the baggage that comes with living in a country where everything costs you, so much money, and so you really want to put off going to the doctors unless you really need to.
Yeah.
So I found, as much as I love, kind of living, with the healthcare system I have, I find I still hold on to a lot of that. Like, I don't really need to go, which I guess is good because there's a lot of people that just go for any old reason. So maybe I'm helping to balance that out. I don't know.
I tend to hold off because you know what? Other people are probably way sicker than I, so they can use. I don't want to be. Oh, I got a bit of a headache this morning, Chris. I need to go to the doctors. But I always avoid these. Right, just check everything. Check everything. And so I'm a lot better than I was 3 months ago. But it's whatever it is. It seems to be long COVID or whatever. It seems to be the indication. Sometimes I'll wake up and I'll be fine for like 2-3 days, and then I'll wake up and I'll be like, I feel like crap today.
Yeah.
And I've just got to write the day off going, well, guess I feel terrible. So hopefully I'll feel better tomorrow. So that's weird. That's not something I'm used to.
So what are those days like for you then when you wake up and you're just not feeling well? Like, what does the day usually entail at that point? Is it a lot of just kind of bed rest? Like, what do you kind of find you fill your time with on those types of days?
It's a lot of listening to podcasts. So I am catching up on Lydia and Wes's Dead Air episodes. So that's good. I listened to the Ghost Watch one the other day. We'll get on to
talk about that. Yeah.
Because I was fascinated by that. They were like, apparently this. I'm like, I remember that. I remember it being on TV and people going, I thought it was real. So that was a thing. My days are generally, okay, Annette, I'm feeling terrible today, so I'm just going to have a rest day today. And it'll just, we're winter here. It's 10 degrees Celsius, so it's chilly.
It's pretty chilly here as well.
And so it'll just be make sure I stay warm, make sure I just catch up on some TV, try and sleep if I can do. And then usually I do wake up, but go back 3 months, it was pretty much every day for a full month where I'm like, I don't want to do anything. So I'm certainly not where I was. But it's even things like podcasting. So my bed is like 3 feet away from my desk. And I'll be lying there going, I've got a website article to do. Yeah, and I ain't got the energy. It's like literally 3-4 feet. It's quite. I look at and then I hear myself saying that. I'm like, that's pretty pathetic, to be fair. So on occasion, I've sort of got mad at myself internally and going, get up, go do something, and it works. It's weird. There's a lot of it is in the brain, which is very strange. If I sit there and go, I feel fine. Do I feel fine? Actually, there might be a bit of a twinge in my hand. My hand hurts. Look at my arms. And it's weird. It's very strange. So it's all new to me. Not a fan. Want my health back.
Well, I'm definitely keeping my fingers crossed that it comes back sooner than later, man. Because you definitely, you're still staying pretty active and doing a bunch of stuff, but it just seems like this is really taking you out of commission a little bit over the last few months, and it's a shame to see. So we're not young men anymore, but we're not old either. So it's like we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be having our asses
She's
kicked.
like, well, you are getting on a bit. I'm like, oi, none of that.
On a bit. I love it.
It's just whatever it was. So I booked myself. I've been checking my own blood pressure. I think I've got high blood pressure as well. So I've got a monitor, which I had anyway. So I've been checking all that, and I'll go in with the piece of paper and go, here you go. There's the past 2 weeks blood pressure. Because otherwise they'll go, for the next 2 weeks, do this. Yeah. Already done it. Yeah. What else you got?
Yeah, it's like running every possible troubleshooting with, like, if your internet goes out or something before you call the provider. Yeah. It's like, we're going to skip about 20 minutes of you telling me what to do because I've already done it. Yeah.
Because I'm going to go in, I'm going to be like, okay, before you do the full workup, the blood tests are clear because I had them done 3 months ago. They're fine. Various other samples, you did those. They're all fine. So you tick them off the list.
Yeah.
So,
well, I would be interested to see how your blood pressure reacts to staying off the internet a little bit. Have you tried that experiment?
No, I've tried the stress experiment.
Okay.
And stress does, not so much with just the blood pressure, but
Yeah.
Whatever it is that I've got, because nobody can put a name on anything nowadays. It's like, oh, we think it could be this. Tell me what it is, and I can deal with it. I can Google it. I can Google it and solve it all in a heartbeat. TikTok will tell me how to cure myself. And stress does seem to flare up. So I have cut down a lot of my time on the internet.
That's good.
But you did it more extreme, didn't you? You had a Twitter account and everything. You just went gum.
Well, for me, I never had much of an internet footprint, like especially social media footprint to begin with, because my personality is of such that, like, I just have a kind of a hard time making those connections with people, even in any way, like even in small ways of just like, hitting like on something. Like for me, that's kind of like a big deal. So like I found even like when I had my old podcast and it was really just for the podcast. I would post the episode and that would be it, because the interactions with people, one-on-ones was fine. And that's kind of how you and I began speaking, right? And I was always fine with that. But in any kind of public forum, it's difficult for me. So it wasn't hard for me to step back entirely, because I was kind of never there to begin with.
Right. Yeah.
And then when I did the Twitter thing, like that was I just started a Twitter account just because I didn't want somebody else to get it, like my band's, my music project's name. I was worried about that, so I'm like, let me just have it, and then nobody else can have it. And then I just found I didn't go on it very much, but when I did, I was disappointed with what I saw. We'll say that in people, and that's coming from somebody who doesn't have a lot of faith in people to begin with. So.
It's lessened it even more.
Yeah. So this is
that.
silly, and I'm finding it very difficult to want to put anything on this. So that was when I just kind of stepped back from that entirely as well. That lasted all of like 4 months, I think. So, it's, so I haven't necessarily found it's improved my life much, because it never really detracted from it to begin with, because I was never really much of a part of it. But I can say, seeing the kind of strife and anger everybody always seems to feel, and it always in reference to, so-and-so said this online, or I saw this online, or, the news is whipping me up into a frenzy online. I can say I'm definitely, I definitely think I'm happier than those people. So we'll leave it at that, and I'm good. It's a win.
I think I see a lot of people go, people, it's X now technically, but people still call it Twitter. Twitter's a crazy place, and it's like, it is. But if you stick to the people you follow and the people who follow you, it's nice. So it's like you and I would follow each other, and Steve Miller and Neil Johnson and all that sort of stuff. And it's fine. It's when you click into the hashtags or you join in somebody else's conversation. That's when the craziest. And Facebook's just the same.
Sure.
It's just everybody, like you'd mentioned, everybody's angry and down on everything.
Well, it's like we were kind of chatting about the last time, where it's like, the internet and this increased connectivity between people has made it so that nobody really has a individualistic voice anymore, because everybody is sort of on the same playing field. Yeah. And I think that, at least partially is to blame for the way people have to constantly one up one another, or talk down to one another, or try to hurt one another online, because they're basically trying to in some way stand out. But of course, I think what they're really doing is just becoming part of the pack, and it's just kind of feeding that weird. I was joking with Lydia earlier in the week. I said something about, and I've said it before, where we don't have, you watch a movie like Gladiator, we don't have the arena, anymore, but we have the internet, that feeds people's bloodlust just fine. So
I was listening to a podcast of the week, and they summed it up perfectly, saying that social media is a bit like Fight Club, where in the 1999 they all got together in car parks and punched each other. Now they just go online and punch each other with keyboards. And I'm like, social media kind of is like Fight Club.
Yeah,
but
I like that too. That's good.
It's kind of bonkers. It's like, we all have a certain amount of time. We've all got 24 hours in a day, and it baffles me why people go, I'm going to spend some time going to talk about Joker 2, which I have no interest in watching, and I hate it, but I'm going to join in and talk about it. Why? You don't want to watch it? Don't worry about it. Just watch something else. It's not a problem. Go watch Deadpool or The Hangover or something. Watch something else. It's just
watch something that makes you happy.
It wastes so much time.
Yeah, and that's that was
baffled.
You and I have always been so similar, I think, in that respect. I know maybe you spend a little more time online than I have, but it's never affected you to the point where you are joining in with that kind of mindlessness and that sort of negativity, that sort of negative addiction where you just want to rip on things and talk about how bad things are just because everybody else is. And it's like, you know, it's just that herd mentality that I've always hated my whole life, and now it just exists in this new fashion. But you and I, like, you know, when I used to have my show, and of course with all of your various incarnations of your podcasts, it was always about from a film lover's perspective.
Yeah,
and anytime, like, if I was reviewing something on BTK where, you know, I mean, I pretty much picked most of the things because they were things either I was looking forward to or things I, you know, really loved. But in the case of the things I was looking forward to, if it ended up not being great, you know, and it was something I didn't like, I would either be very just saddened by that, or in if I had time, I would switch the movie. And I would say, okay, guys, we're doing this instead because.
And you did do that a
terrible.
few times. There's some episodes you would listen to. Well, we were going to do film X, but now we're doing film Y, and it's like, okay, because it's like, why spend an hour and a half talking about a film that you hated? I'm sure you and I are very similar in we don't presume that every film that's been made is for us.
Exactly.
It's tailored for us, and if we don't enjoy it, the filmmaker is screwed up. How dare they?
No,
it's like, that's not for me. You know.
No.
It's
very few cases where I've seen a film where I go, they just didn't give a shit. Like that was like a production studio or something saying, hey, this is really popular right now. Let's do this movie and try and make some money. Yeah. And I'm usually smart enough to not watch those to begin with. But sometimes, you know, trailers, as you well know, trailers can be extremely misleading. And sometimes you think you're getting a very different movie from what you end up seeing. And that's not a question of liking it or not. That's just a fact. This movie is not what was advertised, you know. But you know, it happens, and it's very rare though that like I watch this and go, well, that was a waste of my time, and they clearly didn't give a shit when they were making this. They made this to make some money, and that is all. And that's fine, you know, it's a business, but you know, we both like the artistry behind that business, and so it's not for us, right?
I choose really wisely with films, so I think I would struggle to put together a top 10 awful films that I've watched this year. And I watched 26 films in October, so I think around 230 films this year. Mm-hmm. I'd probably struggle to pick 10 that I thought that was just a waste of time. There probably are some in there, but I try and pick wisely. And if I think I'm not going to like it, I won't watch it. And then I may watch it 5 years later and go, that film was amazing. Human Centipede's a great example where I just didn't want to watch that. But why would I want to watch that film? It just sounds horrendous. Serbian film's another one. I don't want to watch that. It sounds harsh. Tell me what happens in it. And then somebody I'd heard your episode, but I knew the storyline of the film before.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I don't want to watch that. It sounds horrible. And then I psyched myself up to watch it one year. Great film. And it's like, okay,
it's a spectacularly made film. Yeah.
Didn't want to watch it. Did watch it. Yeah. Went, I was wrong when I didn't want to watch it, and I like it. Same with Human Centipede 1. I've not seen 2. 2 looks a bit too nasty and gnarly for my liking.
2's nasty. 2 is definitely a nasty film. I remember reading an issue of Bazaar magazine, which an old UK magazine. I don't know if you've ever seen Bazaar from way back in the day. They haven't been around in a while. They're around for many years, and it was such a fantastic magazine. I would buy them at bookstores in the US, and they were like really expensive because they were basically like import magazines. And I remember seeing an interview with Tom Six in there. This was, I think, while he was making the Human Centipede, and he talked about, you know, this idea for this movie and where it came from. It's kind of famous now, you know. I think it was something to do with like, you know, child molesters, a way to punish them would be to sew their lips to a trucker's asshole or something like that, right?
They're all around the dinner table and they're like, do you know what I'd do? And you're like, ooh, what an idea.
And just that simple little idea, and it turned into this little franchise. But I remember thinking, well, that's neat. And then, you know, a year or two later, whatever it was, I saw the trailer. I'm like, oh, this does look really good. And I saw it and I liked it. 2 was sort of like the nastier response to people saying 1 wasn't brutal enough, right?
He went, all right, let's do number 2, shall we?
And then it's like, but it's also such a smart film in other ways. But then a lot of people didn't like it because it was the beginning of what people would say sort of the masturbatory Tom Six that we all know now, where it's like him referencing himself and his other films. and he does it in 2, and then he does it, I think, even a little bit in 3, because he's basically having the same actors come on in 3, playing new parts. So, you know, Tom Six, I feel like, is just one of those directors. I mean, I love him. I've seen his 3 Centipede films and his film before that. I think WTF, I think it was called, or whatever. And I think he's just one of those directors that people do love to hate, but at the same time, every time somebody lobs an insult at him or tells him he's talentless or whatever, it makes his art that much funnier to him.
Yeah.
Because it's all just, I think, a big joke to him, but, you know, and I appreciate that. So,
and he's still trying to get the Onania Club released. It's still no sign of it. The third biggest article on my website is, will 2024 see a release for the Onania Club? And that's like the third biggest article of the year now, and we're in November. And periodically I'll just retweet it. Tom Six will retweet it. It's like, that film must be, what, 2 years old or something now, if not older. No sign of anybody picking that up, and you could possibly see why they're like, I don't know how to market that, but I think it's quite easy. Market it. New Tom Six film, Guide to the Human Centipede. Go watch it.
It's going to sell. It's going to sell. It's going to do well. I think the problem is, and I'm just supposing. What do I know? I'm just supposing, because I'm sure there's plenty of people who have like approached him. Yeah. You're not going to tell me like in Unearthed Films or you know, any of the sort of boutique horror distributors haven't approached him about this film. I'm sure they have. I would bet he's just not going to settle for whatever they're willing to offer for the rights, right?
Yeah.
To release it. And I respect that. It's his art, and he should, you know, he should get what he feels, you know, he should get the money that he feels is worth it, right? So, but I think I don't know. It's got to be something to do with that, because somebody somewhere would be willing to take on this film. I'm sure plenty of people would, and I know the talks of, well, just release it for free like so many other directors do. But why should he? You know, he's put a lot of money and work into this. Like, he should absolutely get something out of it. So I
saw somebody had asked him that question probably like a year ago, going, "What? Put it on streaming," and he said he's got to pay investors back.
Sure.
And it's like, well, they're not going to go, yeah, it's fine, we'll just write that money off. Clearly, there's a dollar amount or euro amount in his case that he needs to get to be able to pay them back and, you know, move on to his next chapter. But
could you imagine the people who invest in a Tom Six film?
I'd invest in it if I had spare money.
I mean, I would too, but I bet you there's some scary people that invest in Tom Six movies.
Would you not? I know you didn't do too many interviews on your show, but would you not love to have got, you know, Tom Six on there?
I would have loved to.
Same here. I want Tom Six on this one. I'm going to send him this episode and send him a timestamp. Tom Six, come on and chat to me and Chris.
It would have been wonderful. There's honestly a bunch of people, like, when I think back to the interviews I did, like, I was so happy with all of them. And I know we talked about that on the last time we talked, but I didn't think about interviewing very often. If I had really thought about it more and said, you know, I want to interview 6 people this year.
Yeah.
Tom Six, absolutely, 100%. Would have been, if not at the top of the list, towards the top of the list, because, you know, and maybe I could have gotten him, who knows. Maybe if I bought one of his, you know, paint farts paintings or whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, you know, he's great. I think he's a maybe not a living legend, but a gem of a human being, and his misanthropy is tied so closely with his very dark humor. And that's what I love. I love that in an artist. So yeah, he's definitely somebody who makes art that speaks to me, whatever that says about me. But I can't wait for the Onania Club. And, you know, I was thinking this year we might have gotten it, because there's weird things that have happened this year, things that were sort of a long time coming that finally happened. You know, I just emailed you the other night on Halloween. I was watching The Cure play it for like this little BBC show.
Me too. It's been. We'll get onto The Cure. It's been like a full-on Cure weekend so far.
16 years since their last album. Yeah, we'll talk about The Cure. But another thing that came out was a movie that has been talked about and apparently at least half made for, I don't know, over 10 years now. The Profane exhibit. That finally got released like a month or two ago. I own the Profane exhibit, and this is a movie that was, I mean, it was around, I think, before I started a podcast. It was this extreme horror anthology with some very big names in the underground and extreme horror world who were making these short segments. and it just never came out. And apparently it just took a while to make, but then it sat around for a while, and I don't know what the deal is. I don't think anybody really does, because I talked to somebody who actually worked on one of the segments when I was visiting the toe tag store in Pittsburgh years ago. She had no idea what was going on with it. So it finally came out. Unearthed managed to assemble this film and put it out, and it exists in an actual tangible form.
Nice.
And I thought, like, between that coming out and The Cure actually putting out a damn album this year, maybe we'll get the Onanya Club, because that's really the other big holdout at this point.
Yeah,
but,
that's it. Once the Onanya comes out, it's like, okay, what's the plan for next year then?
Yeah.
We get some new goals. I want the Suskas film to come out, On the Edge or Over the Edge.
Okay.
That came out years ago. People have seen it. It's like, when's it getting a UK release? I don't know. No
Has it
idea.
gotten-
They've done another movie since then.
Has it gotten any kind of release, or just not in the UK?
It was, I don't know. I don't think it has got any sort of release. I mean, it was bouncing around the festivals, and there was like Fright Fest screenings and stuff like that. So I was getting very excited, and nothing, not a peep.
I remember when American Mary came out years ago. I think it came out like last in the United States, which is weird because US tends to get a lot of things, maybe not first, but pretty quick. And I remember like I had to wait like a long time, and then I was like looking at just importing the damn thing because I was like, I really wanted to see it. And then when I saw it, I wasn't like that thrilled with it anyway, but whatever. It was one of those movies that like, or like Clown or something like that, where it's like, God, when is this movie coming out? Like, I know other people have it. It's done. Like, why aren't we getting it? So but.
It's like there was a few years ago when I was doing the virtual Fright Fest interview coverage and stuff, and I got sent a whole bunch of screeners. It's like the amount of films that I saw years ago that have just never come out, like Revenge Ride with Pollyanna McIntosh. It's like, as far as I know, that's never even come out. It's just, it's such a shame. But
yeah, it's weird. And then, unfortunately, when some of these movies do finally come out, I've plumb forgotten they existed. In most cases, like if it's something I really want to see, like, the Profane Exhibit or of course the Onanya Club. There's another movie I saw a trailer for just years ago called American Ecstasy that I'm convinced probably wasn't a real film, even though it said it was. It looked very, very messed up. That I'll never forget about, even though I know it's never going to come out.
That title's familiar for some reason. I don't know why, but I'll investigate that one after. I know that title from somewhere.
I think the trailer's still up on YouTube. It's a pretty rough looking movie. I don't know that it is a movie, but they certainly said it was. So it's like more along the lines of something like The Bunny Game. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but I've
heard of it. I mean, you're many more levels down the horror iceberg type thing than I am.
I hate that whole iceberg thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm not even a big fan of The Bunny Game, but American Ecstasy looked pretty cool. So, I just hope in the Onanya Club's case or some of these other movies that we've just been waiting 20,000 years for, I hope they come out in our lifetime,
And in this day and age, it comes out, and then the internet goes, "That was terrible. Why did they release this? They should never." Just don't watch it. Move on. Watch something else.
Yeah, because the production company, the director, the actors, everybody who worked behind the scenes, special effects, even catering, they all made this movie to piss you off.
Yep. I watched, and so I'll go through a bunch of the films that I've watched this month. But one of the films that I rewatched, but Annette had never seen it before, was the Omen remake.
Very nice. Very nice.
It's an okay film. It ain't the Richard Donner one. I love the Richard Donner one. So for me, the remake's like, whatever. So
I saw that on 666 when it came out.
Wow, that's a great release date, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. There was the theater was packed. I'm looking at the age and like, I bet you most of these people have not seen the original, so maybe this will get them to go back. But I think they just all knew. I mean, the Omen and Damien, it's sort of synonymous. Everybody knows what it is. And I think they just, what better way to spend 666?
Yeah,
to go see the Omen remake, right? So it was fine. A lot of people really hate that movie. I've never understood the absolute hatred for it. I don't think they did anything necessarily new and special with it, but it was fine. Like it was a good way to spend 666. So there you go.
And for me, it's a meh movie, and it's a meh movie because I adore the original one. I've seen the original one 50, 60, 70 times over the years. So, and the remake is kind of like a color by numbers version of that one.
It is.
But if I hadn't seen the Richard Donner one, I'd be like, it's a really good film. And then I listened to the commentary of the remake, and the amount of work you hear the producers and the editors, we did this, we did that. And if you look at Liev Schreiber's eyes, and he's doing all this, and it was great to watch. And like the amount of work that's gone into the Omen remake, and yet generally most people go, it sucks, and then move on. You're like, that's awful. So much work. What do you think, guys? Do you like it? No. All right. Well, guess that was infuriating. It was good commentary. I enjoyed listening to it. I do love those chat tracks.
The Omen, The Omen is, there aren't many films, even in, and I only say perfection in terms of what I view as perfection. I'm not viewing it from like the film perspective or whatever, but there aren't many films I would say are perfect. The Omen is a perfect film. For me, it's absolutely a perfect film. I don't think there's a way to improve upon that movie. No. From the acting, the casting, of course the sets, and of course the story is amazing. The book was amazing, and of course the soundtrack is legendary. So it's like that is an absolutely perfect film. So.
Maybe not drugging a monkey and then stealing it so you can get the other monkeys to go mad. It might be a way to improve upon it.
Hey man, people did what they had to do.
Gotta go with what works. So we watched that, and then we watched Omen 2, and then The Final Conflict, which I love all three of those. I think they're all really good. I think they do sort of slide, slightly in. Wow, 1's great, 2's really good, 3's good. Sam Neill's amazing as Damien.
Sam Neill is incredible.
Perfect casting.
Oh my God,
that was shot at like 2-3 years before the film came out, which I didn't know. It was shot in like 78 or something, 79.
I didn't know that either.
Till the 80s. It's like, damn. I don't know why. I don't know what the delay was, but
interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. I kind of view it's weird. I view the Omen films as separate entities entirely from one another. Like the first one is like it stands so much on its own, and the second one, they're all like the logical story progressions, but I really kind of look at them as like these individual movies that all happen to be linked by this one character. Well, two characters if you count the devil, but it's like it's like so in that sense I don't tend to compare them so much, because I could say, well, yeah, the first one's the best one, but then again it's like I really love how utterly insane Sam Neill is in The Final Conflict. Like he is so good in that, with the dogs and all that. It's like he's so good. But then like 2 is really incredible too, because you're really watching this kid who has no idea who he is suddenly find out who he is at the very end, and it's so good.
That scene when he realizes who he is and he runs to the end of the pier and he's like, why? It's like that is just he didn't do a lot of acting, that kid though, Jonathan. No, he did few bits and pieces, but it's amazing. But it's a solid trilogy. I'm not counting Omen 4: The Awakening, which I've still never watched.
Come on, like, Delia is great.
Is it worth watching then?
No,
or skip
it's
it.
So bad.
I'm like, Damien's not a little girl. What's going on? It's a reboot or whatever it is. I don't know.
It was the story was Damien, as in Sam Neill Damien. Was it that he raped a nun? Or had sex with a nun, because of course that's what the Antichrist is going to do, because that would be the most blasphemous thing, right? And the child born out of that sexual contact is Delia. I think her name was Delia, and that's the little girl in the Omen 4.
Right. I'll still skip it.
I rented the VHS when I was like a kid, and believe it or not, it's the first full Omen film I ever saw. Oh, wow. I'd seen clips of all three of them when I was much younger, but I never watched one all the way through. And it's not for a young kid to watch. Like, those movies are slow and are about story, right? But as an adult, you appreciate them more. But I remember renting 4 from like a Blockbuster video or something like that, and it's like, oh, this is kind of fun, because I had seen it's sort of like, I think I'd just maybe seen prior or after that The Good Son. Of course the Bad Seed and all that stuff. So it's kind of like in that vein in a way. And then, I saw the trilogy some years later and went, well, I'm never watching the part 4 again.
Yeah. I'm still nervous about elevators though, even to this day. And Rottweilers. I'm keeping an eye on a Rottweiler to this day because of the Omen films.
Yeah. Now, have you seen the first Omen?
I have. We watched that. I think it's one of the films we watched obviously this year because it came out this year. But I enjoyed it. I liked it.
Yeah, me too.
I saw people online going, "Oh, it ruins the storyline of the first, the Donna Roman." I'm like, "Okay, let's go in and watch it. Be prepared." I'm like, "How did it ruin it? I don't know."
They changed some things, but it almost makes sense. The stuff they changed, I think it almost makes sense because the story that would have been given to Gregory Peck's character in part 1 obviously would have been a lie, right? They're not going to say what actually, like the people in cahoots are not going to tell him what actually happened.
No.
So it kind of makes sense that I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to spoil it for the listeners, but it is a solid prequel, and I like the fact that it sets up another story that can take place before the first Omen. So I thought it was very good. Like I really liked it, and I really liked the nod to the movie Possession towards the end, which I like. Are they doing a Possession sequence? And they were. I looked it up. Like, yeah, he was totally like riffing on Possession, another great Sam Neill movie. So, it was. I thought it was great. I loved it.
It's good. Yeah. And then also when you go back and watch the Donna Omen, having watched the first Omen, there's some references in that because I heard Annette doing it. She's like, "Oh, that's from the first Omen." I'm like, it is. So it enhances the original film rather than just ruins it like a lot of the internet.
The only thing it ruins is our ability to call Donner's Omen the first Omen.
Yeah, that does get confusing, doesn't it? I watched the first Omen. Oh, I saw that this year. No, not that one. The other one. It's the same with the first Purge. That did that as well, didn't it?
And the Xbox.
Yeah, pretty much.
Can't call an Xbox One anymore.
So confusing.
Yeah.
So we rewatched the Omens. We've rewatched all the Poltergeists as well, including the remake.
Nice.
Again, the remake's
I never saw it. Never saw it.
It's a bit like the Omen remake. You watch it, and still prefer the original, but it's fine.
Yeah. So where do you fall in the Poltergeist camp? Do you think Spielberg directed it?
No. I know for a fact he didn't because I know somebody who was on the set of it.
Okay.
Well, do I know them? Technically, I know Mick Garris. So he was doing publicity around that time, and he knew Toby and all that sort of stuff. So he gets a little bit irate when people are like, "Did Spielberg do it?" No, he didn't. I'm sure Spielberg was on set.
I bet you he had input, but to say he directed it, I think is awfully mean to Toby Hooper.
It really is.
So yeah.
So yeah, no, it's but whenever you hear anybody mention Poltergeist on a podcast or whatever, I know we've kind of done it. They always mention Spielberg, don't they? They always go, "Oh, Spielberg one." No, Toby Hooper. Toby Hooper one.
That's literally the reason why I asked you the question because I never really knew anything about that until I started listening to more horror podcasts, and whenever anybody would bring up Poltergeist, like there would always be the not argument but the discussion about whether or not Hooper actually directed it or not. And I was like, well, I mean, it just because like it's not. I don't know. Like if you look at some of Toby Hooper's other movies, like it looks like one of his movies. Like they're not like. People have this idea that because he directed a movie called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre that all of his movies are just like drenched in blood and gore. It's like clearly you haven't watched enough of his movies.
Invaders from Mars, that's not drenched in blood.
Right. So, but because I guess Poltergeist has to do with like a family in a suburban setting, people just automatically assume that it was that era Spielberg, and I don't know.
And it kind of it has a Spielberg look to it, certainly at the beginning with the housing estates and stuff. It looks like E.T., couldn't it? That could easily have been set on the same thing, but maybe that's just what all housing estates in America, all new build ones looked like in 1982. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's I'm not the hugest Poltergeist fan. I like some of the stuff. I actually, believe it or not, when I was growing up, I actually liked part 2 more, only because of the worm scene.
Yeah.
Like that scene and of course like Julian Beck's character, of Kane is so
amazing,
iconic and still frightens the hell out of people to this day. Rightfully so. It's a frightening performance. But then the whole like H.R. Giger designed worm sequence, which I believe he designed that.
He did.
As a kid, that just freaked the shit out of me, and I never wanted to even look at Tequila after that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And where do you fall on number 3?
That's the high-rise one, right?
The tower block. Yeah.
I remember seeing it when I was young and not liking it. I liked a couple it wasn't horror enough for me. That was the thing. Like a lot of the horror movies, even when I was a kid, like, I saw a bunch of really scary movies like kind of early. So that really set a standard for me. So then when I would see things like Poltergeist or I'm trying to think of some other movies where it's just like, I mean, this is cool, but it's not horror enough.
Yeah.
It's probably, I mentioned before, it's probably the reason why I never got into Star Wars, because I saw Alien before I saw Star Wars. So
Yeah.
if there was a movie set in space, it needed to have a freaking awesome monster in it. You know what I mean? And Star Wars wasn't that movie for me. So I don't know. I would be interested to rewatch 3, I guess, because I remember some parts of it. I remember somebody getting their face tore off or something like that, and I remember the ending of it, and it felt like it kind of wrapped everything up. But I also remember being disappointed that Julian Beck, because I don't think he was in it, or was
No, he'd passed away. I
He'd
think
passed
by
away,
then.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, his character is in it.
Character's in it.
Slightly, but you can instantly tell you're not as good as Beck.
Yeah.
You're not him.
Yeah.
You're not him. You're trying, but you're not him.
Yeah, I remember kind of being disappointed because I thought it wasn't him. So, but that's cool. It's a good trilogy to watch for sure.
Yeah. So we'd watched all of those.
Trilogy.
What else? Speak No Evil 2024. I'd watched that one. Interesting. Alien Romulus.
You watched Romulus?
Romulus. I've
Nice.
thoroughly enjoyed Romulus.
Yeah, I remember when you had Stu on, I don't know, a couple months ago, and he had just seen it. And I had to unfortunately skip past it because I hadn't yet gotten a chance to see it. Huge Alien fan. It's one of the few mainstream franchises I still really love. And funny stories. I'd gone to the States for my brother's birthday mid-August, and it was the weekend it was opening, and he wanted to go see it. So we bought tickets and we went there, and they had a problem. They couldn't get the movie started. So we had to leave. And so I didn't get to see it with him when I was there. I came back. I waited maybe another month because I just can't stand the theater experience because of people mostly.
Yeah, same. We're on the same page on that one.
Yeah, It's why I haven't gone to see Terrifier 3, right? Like, I will wait for the streaming. I'm fine with that. But Alien is different. It's something very close to my heart. So I really wanted to see it. So finally, Lydia and I went and saw it, and I loved it too. I thought it was great. Yeah. There's certain things I maybe wasn't the hugest fan of, but as an Alien film goes, and as something that feels like it's rooted in that franchise and in that lore, it's right there, man. They did a good job.
What were your thoughts on Ian Holm? Sorry, Ian Holm.
It looked weird.
It did look weird.
I didn't know that character was in it. I mean, it was just, what it was. It was a lot of what I remember people complaining about when I think it was the J.J. Abrams Star Wars came out.
Yeah.
The first one of all these new Star Wars movies that started some years back, where people liked it initially, but then the more people thought about it, they realized it was just kind of like, well, he just kind of took a lot of things from a lot of the different stories and movies and put it all into a movie. And that's what I think Romulus is.
Yeah, of course.
It's all the little shots, all the little things, all the little lines they say. It's its own story 100%, and they actually go into some new areas with it. But at the same time, if you're an Alien fan, you're going to see things every couple minutes. You're going to see something you recognize, right? And it's kind of meant for you. So
yeah,
and that's fine. As far as the Ash or whatever, I guess it was supposed to be Ash, an Ash-like character. It looked weird. Like, I'm sorry, every time I see it, it just looks off. So
makes you want to pause it and just study it a little bit more. And you shouldn't do that when you're watching a film. You should be like, carry on the story. Yeah, entertain me. But it was good. It didn't ruin the film for me. It's just kind of odd. No. It's like, okay, your choice.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was because of the, the almost sort of steadfast reliance on practical effects that Fede Alvarez was going for with that movie. So then when you see this clearly CG'd face talking to you, it just looks weird. Like it's, I don't know. Maybe it's something they can fix in a later version. Who knows? They do it all the time.
George Lucas it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What else? With Beetlejuice. Had a blast watching that. It was fun.
Yeah.
I like Beetlejuice, the first one. I'm not like a diehard, this is amazing in my top 20 films or whatever. I like it, and I like the second one. It made me laugh, and it was fine.
Lydia wants to see it. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
It's good. Yeah, if you like the first one, you'll like the second one, and it's a fun evening's entertainment.
Sure.
We watched a couple of the Amityville films, so the 1979 Amityville Horror with Margot Kidder and James Brolin, and then we followed it up the night after with Amityville 2: The Possession, which is my favorite Amityville one.
It's good.
I like
that
one.
I haven't seen it in years, but I remember really liking that one when I was young.
What with that and the Rocky movies, I really disliked Burt Young. And I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but it was just like, don't like you. You're always playing greasy, horrible characters. But he played it so well. He played it amazingly.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Amityville? What is it? It's About Time. The one about the clock.
That's the fourth. Is that the fourth one?
I believe it's the fourth or the fifth one. It came out in the early 90s.
I think it's the fourth, and I think that's the one that I bailed out on. I'm like, I think my time with the Amity movies might be at an end.
It has a couple good effects in it, actually, but that was the one where like they were going to start this whole new storyline about the Amityville estate had been sold off, so all these items from inside the house have now found new homes and new houses. So each movie was going to follow a different haunted item, like freaking Friday the 13th, the series.
Or The Conjuring ended up doing years later with Annabelle dolls and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. And I believe that one was about a clock. This clock that was like on a mantle over a fireplace or something. And when I was a young kid, I was like, yeah, this is fine. I like it. And it had a couple cool effects, but not a great, a great movie. But let's face it, most of the Amityville movies, whether it's Amityville Toilet or Amityville in Space or Amityville Werewolves or
and it's like sometimes you see somebody who share a poster for these on Facebook and you're like, Amityville coffee cup, and you're like, why have you made that poster? It's a real film. The amount of Amity, I don't even know who's watching these things anymore, if anybody. It's kind of gone a bit strange.
I remember when I was working for Walmart years ago, and we would get them all in. That was kind of one of the cool things about working at the store when I did. Was every Tuesday week they'd put out new DVDs and Blu-rays back when they actually stocked the stuff. So I'd kind of get my first pick of the horror stuff that was coming out. I remember the one week we got like 5 different Amityville movies in on like one day. Like,
did you get them all?
Vampire? No.
You thought no.
I hope one day somebody who does not care about their money decides to make a giant Amityville box set just so we can have all of the garbage in one spot. So that'd be fun.
I keep looking at the Full Moon Features type catalog going, do you know what? At some point I'd love to watch all the Charles Band movies.
Yeah.
But it's just too many of them and I don't have that much money. So I'm like, I
used to love Full Moon when I was a kid. In the early 90s, like I really liked I read the Puppet Masters and Demonic Toys and all that stuff. Those are fun. I met Charles Band once
really
at a convention. He was actually working the Full Moon table, and it was right as they were getting their streaming service up. And so basically he was trying to get people to give him money for the streaming service. It's like, if you pay $60 now, like you can get a year of Full Moon streaming or whatever it was called. Plus you can take your pick from like any 5 DVDs on the table you want. Yeah. It was a pretty good deal, but I wasn't really interested in the streaming service, to tell you the truth.
Sign those DVDs, have them all.
But then like kind of once I said, I'll think about it, he just immediately stopped talking to me. Like he didn't want to have anything to do with me at that point. It's like he knew I wasn't going to give him any money, or he thought I wasn't going to give him any money. He could have possibly got me to give him money if he had just, been a little less kind of like, you're of no value to me now. So that's fine. Whatever. He was there to work. But I did have my little conversation with Charles Band. So.
It's moments like that when we're old and grey sitting in a rocking chair, whatever, you look back and you go, I did that. I did this. I did that. I was having a conversation with Annette yesterday or this morning or whatever it was, saying stuff like that. I said, I look back at a lot of the stuff that I'd done. I think it was after, so we're going to shift into The Cure in a minute. So the Cure album's great, by the way. I'm loving it.
Phenomenal.
I was never a Cure fan.
Oh, no.
I'm not like, I'm a fan of The Cure. I loved Burn from The Crow because I love The Crow and the song fits and it's amazing. But all the Cure stuff I'd ever heard was the singles that were played to death.
The least interesting.
And I'm not a fan of those. And then they were headlining Glastonbury 2019. And they played the full set on TV. So I sat, Annette likes The Cure, we'll sit down and watch that. So we sat down and I'm like, these are actually really good. And they played a lot of stuff. They played the singles, man.
Sure.
But a lot of I like the orchestral parts. Nothing against Robert Smith's vocals, but the orchestral things are like, wow, that's pretty impressive. Similar to the stuff you do. So, pairing you with the Cure.
I wish.
And so this new album is focused on how old am I? Looking back. Because apparently it was written around the time that Robert Smith lost his older brother and his parents. So he's like, I'm getting old now and mortality and blah, blah, blah. So I was chatting with Annette about that. And I said, I look back at a lot of the stuff that I've done over the years. And I'm like, my life was like that. I'm building up to this. And at a minute, I feel like I'm going, doink. I'm not doing anything. And not in a depressing way, but it's just like, what have I done this year? That sort of stuff. And it was, that's when you reflect back on stuff you've done years before. Like you'd mentioned with the Charles Band, you're like, kind of did that. You spoke to Paul Hyatt. He was one of your guests on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're like, you've got to focus on the really cool stuff you've done over the years. And you're like, maybe I should do some more cool stuff.
Yeah, it's a good, it's better to focus on that than maybe the fact that you've kind of plateaued or whatever. But it's also good inspiration to do good stuff again, right? So
yeah.
And I go through that all the time as well. So, and you've done just in regards to kind of what you've been able to accomplish with, all the work you've done with film and your podcasts and the website and everything, you've made so many just amazing connections with people who have really helped shape film and horror, not just horror, but film in general, it's incredible. Some of the stuff that
it's weird when you think about it though. I mean, I often sit down and go, like, here's a mental list of the cool things I've done. How did I end up doing those cool things? I don't know, but it's kind of weird. And I did, sitting down chatting with the Soskas or Mick Garris, who I've spoken to and who knew my name instantly when he saw me. And it's like, how does that make sense? Why? I don't. And I never question it too much. It's just like, I acknowledge the fact that it's really weird that this one geeky film kid from Scotland who moved to England with nothing just ended up working at a video store, ended up owning a video store, ended up closing down a video store, somehow can interact with Paul Hyatt, who I chat to on a semi-regular basis online. Like, how did that happen? I don't know. Kind of weird. So,
no, absolutely. And next time you talk with Paul, I'm sure he wouldn't remember me from that show, but be sure to tell him, hey, you did a interview with this old podcast and Chris says hi.
And do you know what? He will remember it, I think.
Yeah.
He one of the guy. He's a really nice guy. And I've not had him on the podcast yet.
Yeah. I don't know what was going on there. I ended up having him on the American podcast before you had him on yours. Yeah, he was a great interviewer, or a great interviewee. He was just a lovely man. So, but yeah, it's cool. It's cool to think about, what we've been able to accomplish in that respect. And, I think about some of the stuff you've done, and I think about, like, I'm always just really enamored, or not enamored, but I'm always really just interested in this idea of, I know somebody who had a video store. So that's why I really loved, because, like, I grew up when the video store was king, right? So, I was there when, VCRs became semi-affordable. You had to save for a long time for them, but they became semi-affordable. So I was there for that sort of home video revolution there. And so to know somebody who had a video store, a place I spent a lot of time in as a kid, that's super cool to me. And that's why I loved those podcasts you were doing, kind of
about the video
the history. Like, I think that is so cool. I still think there's not necessarily more story to tell there, but I would love to see that story relayed maybe in a different way where more people could appreciate it, whether it's a short film or novella or something,
I thought about doing both, and the problem I had with the whole documentary video store thing is it would just pretty much be me talking head, because I haven't got that much footage of video stores and stuff. So I'm like, okay. And then the book thing, you're like, that's a lot of work, that sort of thing. But I was chatting to John Fouts on a podcast recently, and I'd mentioned that and said, I'd love to listen to that. And I ended up putting it on YouTube. It's unlisted because there's probably things I said in that where I'm like, maybe I don't want that going public. Yeah, I was fiddling the till to buy more movies, that sort of thing. I don't know what the statute of limitations is on that one.
I think you're safe.
I think I'm safe now. And it wasn't like I was taking the money. I was putting it back into the video store.
Yeah.
But I joined all the episodes together, put a thumbnail on it, put it on YouTube, and John's listened to that since. So I think it's about 6 hours in total. But the video store years were just interesting from going in as a kid, which you'll have done, right through to, video stores are dead because of Netflix, Blockbuster, and digital piracy.
And people who are short-sighted. Let's make sure that we give credit where credit's due. It's not just Netflix and everybody else, but it's people accepting that as the new standard and being more than happy to forego the actual physical ownership of a piece of art rather than just, I'll stream it to my phone and not really give a shit about it. So.
People just don't, and this is something we've talked about in relation to the music industry as well. It's like people don't want to pay for art.
No,
they're like, Chris has got it. See, I love the fact that I've still got these. I showed these off on another podcast. I had them handy.
I saw.
And
that's
I've
awesome.
got these on. Yeah, I've got them on my iPod, and they're on my iTunes library.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I listen to them more than anything else on CD.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate that. I'm actually toying with doing actual proper CDs for this next release. So, so that might be, we'll have something a bit more professional. But there, I'm not saying people should acquire more things. That's not what I mean. It's just that, it's sad because it's something I never thought would go away, I guess. Like when I was younger and growing up, and I had you'd get a movie, so if you wanted to see a movie, you'd have to go rent the movie or buy the movie. That was how you saw the movie. And I ended up owning a lot of movies that way because I liked rewatching movies. It just made sense. But now I find when I'm buying a movie, it's like I feel this intense desire and need to preserve the movie. Like I'm buying this so it doesn't go away. Like, so even if it goes away, I still got my copy. Like that's always a thought every time I buy a movie now. And it's like, how do we get to this point? How do we get to this point? Like, I should just, be buying a movie to buy a movie. But now it's like this like, this thing I need to do because like one day they're just going to be gone, Well,
one day the internet might go off.
And that's the thing, right? Solar flare or whatever,
Exactly.
And it's all gone. It's all gone. So
I don't know what your physical media collection's like, but I have enough movies that if the internet went off, I wouldn't run out of films for probably about 3 years until I had to start watching the same one again. So I'm well and truly, stockpiled for the internet apocalypse.
Yeah. There's still a few films that I don't have physically that I'm kind of holding out for to either see a release one day or maybe a better release. Like I actually don't have all the Alien films anymore because I sold off a collection a while ago, and then I just never rebought them physically. But now as they're starting to come out one by one on 4K, so I'm sort of picking them up as they come out because I'm just sort of waiting for that full 4K set. But it's my collection is it's like a I don't know, this holy altar in my living room of just like all this art, and it's like it's very it's safe, of course, unless there's a fire or flooding.
Well, they're not safe then. That would be like, right, what do I need to take? Lydia, guitars, hard drives.
and we're just grabbing all our hard drives. It's funny. That's funny. So you said you watched The Cure.
We did. I knew the live stream was coming, and it didn't. And she's like, she's a major Cure fan. She's like, she's been a fan since day one.
Right.
And so I went downstairs, took the remote control. So what are you watching? I just want to watch something on YouTube. So we put it on. She didn't even know it was the new album being premiered. I think it was Germany. I think the gig, the live stream for the thing that we watched, and she was just like, "Oh my god, that was amazing!"
Yeah.
And we were watching how many viewing people there were, and it's like they got 1.5 million followers. So we're watching it, and it's 2 minutes till the live stream kicks off. It's 28,000 people watching or waiting. And I'm thinking, I can't even imagine me going, I'm going to launch a video, and in 1 hour, I've got 28,000 view hours. I wish. I'm struggling to get to 3.
Yeah.
And it just kept going up and up and up. And I think we saw it at 58,000, which was part way through the gig. And you're like,
was this the 3-hour show?
It was a 3-hour one, but we only saw 1 hour because we thought it was the album show. So when they went off and they didn't come on for 5 minutes, we're like, well, I guess that's done. And then I've discovered this morning they carried on for another 2 hours, so we're going to watch that later on. But
the one I was watching when I say in that picture was the one on Halloween night where it was just the 1 hour really intimate BBC show where they played like 3 new songs, and then like, you know, just a bunch of other songs from the mostly like shorter songs so that they could, I guess, play more.
Yeah.
And then I saw the 3-hour one was up, so I'm gonna watch that as well.
That's great. The first hour is their new album in its entirety.
Nice. Yeah, new
album. And they're so amazing lives. My favorite song. Have you got a favorite one off the new album?
Oh yeah.
Which one?
For me, right, I've only listened to the new album twice. For me right now, I'm thinking it's going to be End Song.
Same.
Yeah, that song's, I mean, that's an incredible piece of, and it's so it's like hypnotic, like a lot of Cure songs. It's very hypnotic, where they just build this kind of very simple melody, and it just kind of builds and builds and builds. It's good. Yeah.
So there was one, I think, I can't remember what the name of it was. I think I Can't something or other, I think it was called. And it's got a lot of piano work in it.
Yep.
And Annette was like, this is my favorite song. This is my favorite song. And then 2 songs later, End Song came on. She went, no, this is my favorite song. And she said it's one of her favorite Cure songs ever. And she's listened to everything by The Cure. But I put the headphones on last night, put the studio album on, full, you know, loud as it can be, listen to End Song. I'm like, oh yeah, sounds amazing through headphones.
Yeah, it's a really good album. I mean, I still can't believe it's been 16 years since they've put out a record. I was starting to sort of give up hope they would put it out. He would put it out at all. It well worth the wait. I was telling Lydia, I think I need to listen to it a few more times. I really think it might be their best album since Disintegration.
Yep.
And that's tough to say, because I actually like Wish quite a bit. Wish is an incredible record. Friday I'm in Love notwithstanding. It's an incredible record. That's really the only real competition it has, because Wild Mood Swings isn't a great album, and Bloodflowers is great, but it's kind of the same riff over and over. And then the self-titled one I like 4 songs off of, and then the last record I think I like 2 songs off of. Everything prior, like Wish and before, I love everything. But then after that the releases got a little spotty. But I know he's said for years, you know, this is my favorite thing since Disintegration. Yeah. And I've never quite agreed with him on that, and now I do. Like, I think this might be the best album he's put out since Disintegration. So that's saying a lot, because I've seen The Cure 3 times live. I'm a huge fan, and they always put on these huge shows, long shows. I don't think I've ever seen them play less than 2 hours. It's usually more like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And just every time I watch them live, I'm just like, I just get like irritated that like there are musicians that are this good and performers that are this good, and they do it so effortlessly. Like,
and they're in their 60s. You're like, what?
Like, you bastards. You make everybody look so bad. It's not even funny.
One thing that fascinates me, and I don't know the guy's name, but one of the guitarists who just keeps walking up and down. Just keeps going. It's like stand still, for God's sake. It just fascinates me. It's like, that is the strangest way of playing a guitar ever. It's just like, here he goes again. He's off. He doesn't stand still. Brilliant.
Yeah, they're phenomenal. I'm so glad they're back. I mean, I'm happy they're back. Robert Smith's been doing a lot of lobbying for better ticket prices and all that stuff over the past few years with Ticketmaster, and just calling out corporate and artist greed when he sees it, which I love. He says flat out, like, we don't need all this money. Like, we do not need all this money. We should make things cheaper for people, and which is why he was able to get a lot of his fans refunds or partial refunds on their tickets. Because I know Ticketmaster's huge and all that stuff, but everybody knows they're like, the freaking mob when it comes to pricing. Horrible. So do
you think there was a future? Because we were sitting watching this live stream last night, and it was obviously a case we didn't go to Germany to watch the gig or whatever. A lot of people wouldn't have been able to go to a gig. Do you think there's a time in the future where musicians could just go, right, I'm going to rent this warehouse, rig it with cameras, and people can watch it online? Obviously, you're not getting the same experience as you do if you're actually there, but a lot of people can't get there. And they could make their money just through the streaming platform type thing, rather than them physically touring cities.
They did it during the pandemic. A lot of the artists I like, and these are artists that they're not getting, tens of millions of streams on Spotify. These are artists who have to tour to make money. This is, that's how they live. So when that went away during the pandemic, like, basically the entire entertainment industry went away.
Yeah.
They had to come up with new ways of making money. And a lot of the artists, not a lot, but a handful of the artists I really love were in a position where they could do these live streams. There's like an artist here in Canada that did a handful of them. Some of the metal bands I listened to, they would put on these. In some cases, it was just them playing on a very well lit stage, with great sound, and it was a great way for fans to be able to appreciate live music again, and also to help their favorite bands like stay living. But in some cases, and I'm thinking of one band in particular, they did some really elaborate theatrical performances in a live stream capacity. So it is definitely doable. Whether or not, I think with metal music, a lot of it is that live performance. A lot of people love going to live shows and like feeling the drums in your chest as you're watching it, and all that stuff. So I think that's one type of fan. But I think it could very well exist, and maybe one day, who knows? Maybe one day, if especially if economies don't start improving, it's just too damn expensive to tour anymore for a lot of bands. If you're not making a lot of money on these shows to begin with, how the hell are you going to afford a truck driver and all that gas? And and then you got these venues who take at minimum a 30% cut of all your T-shirt sales. That's the only way you're really making any damn money to begin with.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the way to do it,
Is that something you would do? Or is that, the way you make your music? And I know that you make music. I don't know too much about your process of piecing all the ingredients together. So I don't know whether it would work if you were doing a live gig. But is that something you could?
It could work, really. Like the only way it would be interesting is if there was like more than just me playing music, because like it would really just be me like basically playing guitar to pre-recorded or orchestrated pieces that I'd come up with, so that wouldn't be super interesting, I don't think, to watch. Just watching some dude play guitar to music, like it's not that cool. But if like, I could get maybe a few other people together to do something like that, and if anybody knew who the hell I was, then sure. Like if I could get those two things, then yeah, I think we'd be all right.
Because I was watching.
That would be ideal, honestly, for me, because like, me and large groups of people usually is a great combination. So that would actually be ideal for me.
But you with like cameras pointing at you, go, well, there's no people here. I can just pretend nobody's watching.
Exactly, that I could do
it that way. So that would work. Because I was watching this. This stems from a couple of things. Was the Cure had released a lyric. What was it? I don't know if it's a lyric only video, whatever they called it. But it was effectively the spinning rock, and it was a track called Alone.
Yeah,
I think they released it like a couple of weeks ago or whatever, and that's all it was just the song and this rock spinning. And I'm sitting there going, why has Chris not got this sort of thing on his channel? Why is there not? And then we were sitting watching, just thumbing through YouTube, listening to lots of different music videos and watching all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, I would happily just click on a playlist with NRX and just watch all these like rock spinning or whatever it was, or just treat with your music playing. And if I do it, I think other people would do it, and maybe Chris could make like loads of money from streaming. So maybe just
it's something worth thinking about, because I am still working on this new record, and I really want to maybe. It's not that I don't take them seriously, but I'm thinking of trying some different things this time in terms of actually getting the music out there more than I have before. Because like my own personal baggage keeps me from feeling like I'm worthy of putting out music other than just popping it on Bandcamp and then forgetting about it. And whoever finds it, and I'm done. I need to be able to get past that, because, I think the music is worth hearing. And I'd like more people to be able to discover it. So I'm going to try a couple new things before I release this next record. It might delay the release a little bit, but, that's fine. It's not like I'm on a schedule, right? So, but yeah, I'm going to try a couple things, and maybe that's something to consider, more of like a, some sort of like a motion video or something. There's no real lyrics in any of my songs, but it might be something worth doing because, yeah, Lydia understands the way YouTube works way better than I do. So those are some talks she and I have had as well, as far as like things I can do to like put my music on there in a capacity where I actually own it and everything, and nobody else can make money off of me and all that stuff. So yeah, some things are in the works, but I'll definitely keep that one in mind. I like that idea.
Because I think a lot of people do listen to music on YouTube now.
Apparently
people wake up in the morning and just put the TV on and it's left on all day. But I still prefer Bluetooth speakers, headphones, and physical CDs. But that's me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I never, when I grew up, I didn't listen to the radio. I never understood people who did. I never understood people who watched MTV. Like, why would you want somebody to dictate what music you hear?
Yeah.
I grew up listening to like cassette tapes of like Iron Maiden and stuff like that, and it was like those are bands I wanted to hear. And that extends to the way I listen to music now, where it's like, I don't want to listen to Spotify. I don't want to listen to YouTube Music or any of these other services. I don't want their recommendations. I don't want them to. Recommendations are okay because if you find a cool band, then you just buy their album. But like, I want to listen to a specific album at a specific time, so I put that album
of course
on.
You do. We have one of the Amazon. Well, we've got about 3 of the Amazon devices. I'm not going to say her name because she'll go off. But you'll be like, play U2, for example, and then In Excess will come on. You go, I quite like In Excess, but I wanted to listen to U2. For God's sake, why are you not playing me any U2? It's so much easier for me just to plug my iPod in. But they don't even make iPods anymore.
No, I still have 2 of the iPod Classics in the other room.
They're great.
Yeah, I love the iPod Classic, but I just make sure my iPhone has enough space to hold, all my music now. But because I have a lot of music, but I'm all for digital music too. But I as long as people actually own it, if that's how you want to buy your music, then that's fine. You don't have to own a CD, but at least buy it. Like, I just can't stand the streaming.
I don't like it because again, it's people not buying stuff, isn't it? Well, I get it for free. Well, you don't, because you might have a Spotify account or whatever that you're paying for. So one, and also it's you get more money from a CD sale than however many hours of Spotify things.
I've never made a penny off of Spotify.
Nothing.
And that was back when I used to have my music on there. I pulled all my music down now, but I've never made any money off of there. And there's bands that are prolific in certain subgenres of music who actually sell lots of albums and do world tours, and you hear them talk about how they made 15 or $20 last year on Spotify. It's like, that is sad. That is really freaking sad. So,
because if you're a musician and you go, I'm gonna make music, I'm gonna put it on Spotify, and I've worked all year, how much have I made? $20. I'm not gonna be a musician anymore. I'm gonna go work in a Walmart. Stocking shelves.
I mean, I don't think most musicians get into it to make money. I know I sure.
No, but you need to pay bills and fuel your free time to create new music, I would think.
Would be nice. It would be nice to make a few bucks here and there, so you can put more money into.
Tell me about it.
But so you can put more money into it, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's like when I would do like when I used to do BTK and stuff. We never made any money off of that, and all those movies we did, usually movies I bought. They came from my collection. Once in a while, we would just rent a movie. Maybe we would all just rent a movie. But I would say 90% of the movies we reviewed all came from my collection, which means I bought them all. So if you can make a few bucks doing that, well, maybe that's one movie you don't have to buy this year, and that's great. So again, not trying to complain, because I don't think any artist does what they do for money, and nor should they. But at the same time, to see what you do, what you feel compulsion to do in creating art, to see that devalued by corporations who don't give a flying fuck about you or what you're trying to do, or even the people that they're getting subscription money from, that's sad and that's disheartening. And like you said, that could maybe not be like the death knell for people creating art, but it certainly doesn't help more people want to create art when they see like there's like no future in it. So
I've had people who have seen what I've done over the years, and they're like, do you get paid for that? And I'm like, no. Why'd you do it? Because I enjoy doing it. I like being able to go, hey, Mick Garris, and that sort of thing, and I love it. And then they're like, No,
They don't
couldn't do
understand,
it.
do they?
No, they
Yeah,
don't get
yeah,
it. And I love doing it, but I
yeah,
need to get to a point where I'm doing something that brings money in to enable me to do the other stuff. And it's
yep,
just that's why the publicity thing has
yeah,
started up. But as I was saying to John Fouts, I'm like, if you ever want your email inbox to stop filling up with emails, ask people saying, "Can you do stuff for me?" Just say, "Hey, I charge." Where'd they go? It's an interesting experiment, this publicity thing, but
Well,
we shall
that's
see.
a conversation you and I are going to have at a later date. I was thinking
Yep.
about that, and I would expect you to charge.
Yes.
No, I don't think you should not charge. So yeah,
I think in
but
some years, in like 5 years' time, when I go, oh, I'm not doing the website anymore, and I've blocked all my social media, there'll be another lengthy podcast series where I'm like, let me talk about my experience doing podcasts and websites and publicity for people. There's a whole nother series in that. It's fascinating, interesting stuff.
yeah, well, that's what kind of we do. We in one way or another, we're sort of documenting our lives,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's through films we watch and talking about them on podcasts, or experiences we have, or interviews we do with people, um, creating art of any kind, music, whatever, writing books. It's in a way you're sort of documenting the fact that you were here and here's some
Yeah.
stuff I went through. So I think there's value in all of it. I really do.
I remember
So
speaking to a podcaster, Anthony Alex, who I used to record with. He does
yeah,
a podcast called the Angry Mailman podcast.
yep,
He hasn't recorded in ages, which is devastated because he used to love the shows. And I once asked him, I said, what's your reason for podcasting? I said, mine's like I'm a film geek and I get to hang out with filmmakers. It's awesome. And he said his reason for podcasting is he calls it a legacy. Because at some point he's not going to be around anymore, because none of us are in 100 years. And he said his kids will then be able to go back and listen to thousands of hours of him talking and sharing the stories. And that's why I always make sure my episodes are backed up. And I think this is 751 or something.
wow,
That's a lot of hours of me talking. And Annette stopped listening at episode 300. So she's got 450 episodes at least.
nice.
Listening at some point. If I go first, she might go first. Who knows?
Yeah.
So does that. But it is a legacy. It's a document of
Yeah,
us being here and doing bits and pieces.
exactly. And it's more of a legacy and more of a statement than going on Amazon and leaving a 2-word review for
Yeah.
the movie. It sucked. Like it's, and again, maybe there's value there too, but I just don't see it. But I think it's important. There's obviously like a compulsion or a desire or need to do these things, or else we wouldn't do them. It's not like we make money doing this stuff, so there's obviously a more of a reason why we do it. So
Therapy, that's why I do it. I'm like, I get to hang out with Chris and just talk, and it's great.
Exactly.
Oh yes, I record it and other people listen afterwards, but that's always an afterthought for me. For me, it's like I'm having a conversation with you. We'll cover a whole bunch of topics.
Yeah, it's fun, man. It really is. And I think, when the value is no longer there, that's when you stop doing it, because I know for some people, especially in the podcast world, we kind of, you've been doing it for a very long time. I was doing it, years ago too, but, we kind of were around before it really blew up and became more of a mainstream thing, and now it's like, every celebrity has their own podcast and everything. And so they found another way to make money off of people. Yeah. But, and that's fine, whatever. But we kind of got to see it more in its infant stages. And, and then as it kind of took off more and more, you saw a lot of podcasters start it and then stop it pretty quickly once they realized that A, you actually had to put in work, and B, you didn't make money right away. Yeah. You had to kind of put in that work first. And so you saw a lot of people just kind of stop doing it. Yeah. And those people kind of fell by the wayside. But here you are.
Still going. I'm
going,
like
man.
Richard Gere out of Officer and a Gentleman. I have no place else to go. I have nothing else to do. There's a few bits, but I enjoy it. I think the hardest part sometimes is co-hosts, because it's you yourself can lead a show. And you can go, I like doing this, and I'm going to keep doing this every Sunday or whatever day it is. But it's very hard to find a co-host who will also go, I'm on board with you. I want to keep doing this all the time as well. Usually co-hosts go, yeah, I'm bored now. And you're like, oh, crap. I had Rob, who was co-host with me. He just sort of dropped off the radar. Bob, he dropped off the radar.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think at the minute it's like Stu Miller will just message me and go, when are we recording next? I'm like, you tell me, Stu. And he'll be like, Sunday. I'm like, you're in. And John Fouts will usually have Thursday. He's like, oh, let's chat. All right. And so there might not be one every single week, but it's near enough still evening out, I think.
If I'm being very honest with you, Stuart, I think this incarnation of your podcasting life is the best one yet. And I'm not saying that because I'm a part of it. I'm saying
this particular episode.
No, I'm saying the rotation. You have Stu, who I think, you have some great episodes with him. John Fouts is like just such like a positive dude. And even when you guys are talking about like, I'm not into Star Wars, and you guys tend to talk about Star Wars a bit. So sometimes, like, I'll be like, I'll just skip forward to the next segment. But sometimes I just let it play because you guys have so much fun talking about it. You guys have so much fun talking about whatever you're talking about. So I love when you have him on. I love when you do your sort of one-off solo.
They're
things.
I'm better than I was with those, but they're tricky to do because obviously you're not talking to anybody, are you? And you're like,
I remember when I was doing BTK, I started doing a horror video game show, and I did maybe 20 episodes of it or something like that. And I was a little apprehensive about it, but I really wanted to separate some of my video game stuff from BTK. So that's why I felt the need to do this show. And it was just sort of like an outlet for me just to talk. And when I first started, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to like doing this. But then I really enjoyed it because I was like, well, I don't have to rely on anybody. The edits are way easier because, like, I'm not editing two people. I'm just editing my screw up. So that's easy. If there are any, which of course there were. And so, yeah, it really worked well. And I think I can definitely hear when you do, as you were doing more of them, you got more comfortable doing them. I could definitely hear it. So I love those. I love being a part of it now, obviously. Like, I love, just chatting with you every few months. Like, that's amazing to me. So I think this really works for your show. Like, having like different people come on here and there. I think that's great.
I think it was bad before with some of the I'm not picking on any of the co-hosts, but you would start recording with Rob or Bob and you go, so what have you watched this week? And they'd be like, oh, nothing. All right, brilliant. Well, I've watched 15 films. You've watched nothing. No. Well, what have you done this week? Oh, not a lot. And you're like, this does not make for good listening. And so you then start to think, oh, God, I need to do something with it. But I quite like this.
Maybe that's how you got comfortable doing solo episodes, because like in some cases you were the only one watching films, so
pretty much
you kind of got used to this idea that you were just basically talking.
But no, I quite enjoy this sort of revolving type thing as well. It kind of works. With regards to the Star Wars talk, generally, because I have a Star Wars YouTube channel now, which I started that up as an experiment. I'm like, if I had a Star Wars one, would that just go off like a rocket and have lots of views?
Experiment, actually.
And it's not doing too bad.
Good.
So on each podcast that John Fouts and I have, for the past 3 episodes, we've talked about Star Wars Empire Jedi when we watched it as kids.
Yeah.
And I make sure that's at the end because I then isolate that part from the video.
Perfect.
Bump that onto the Star Wars one. So whenever you get to the Star Wars thing, if you're like, I'm not really bothered about the Phantom Menace, you're not missing anything non-Star Warsy after that point. So just give you a bit of a tip there. So
yeah. Well, you know what? Like I said, even when you guys are talking about it, it's not like a huge thing for me. But at the same time, like, you guys clearly have so much love for that series, warts and all, and so depending on my mood that day, it's just nice to hear 2 people talk about the stuff they enjoy. Right. Yeah. So speaking of watching things, I know we said we were going to mention this. Lydia and Wes recently did their Ghost Watch episode.
Yeah.
And Lydia has a friend named Alex who lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, here in the States. Not here in the States. I'm in Canada, Chris. And Alex had seen Ghost Watch when it came on. So that's who Lydia was talking about on the show. And did you watch the premiere of it as well?
I saw the first half of the premiere because it's
okay.
And listening to Lydia and Wes talking, they were like, people thought it was real. And what for us here in the UK, Michael Parkinson was, I don't know how well he transplanted to the US, but over here he's a talk show host. He interviews actors, authors. That's it. It's not an entertainment journalist. he interviews people. So to see him on a panel was like, okay, it's a Michael Parkinson thing. You didn't for a second think that this was drama. So the key ingredient for that was having Michael Parkinson on this thing, because that suckered everybody.
I love it. It's like the actors after Cannibal Holocaust being paid to go away for a year or whatever. Yeah. That whole story. You know, it's like that one thing just sort of like made it so much more believable.
Yeah.
What did you think when you were watching it beyond that? Like, okay, this is like a news thing. Like, what were your thoughts?
I mean, there was a lot of ghost hunt programs on at the time. And so it just looked like another one of those. You're like, okay, they're obviously on a ghost hunt, but nothing will happen. Nothing ever happens. It usually flips to night vision, and you see the white eyes. And
guess what? 30 years later, 40 years later, nothing still happens.
Nothing happens. So you just thought it was one of those. And then, weird crap starts blowing up in the studio, and light bulbs are exploding and all that sort of stuff. You're like, what the hell is this? What is going on? As somebody in their very early 20s, who worked in a video store, you very quickly went, it's definitely going to be some sort of drama. But a lot of people who I knew were slightly younger than me, they were convinced it was real. They were like, oh my God, did you watch this thing? And it was very Blair Witchy, where people, it was real. No, it's real. No, it's not real. It is. They were convinced. They really were.
Yeah. And then that poor guy killed himself over it or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was, man, that's rough. That's really rough. But I mean, there's obviously mentally unwell people in the world, and if it wasn't Ghostwatch, it may have been something else that pushed him over the edge. So who knows?
Yeah.
That it's just so incredible, and I think we look back fondly, especially as like horror fans, because it's something kind of close to a lot of us. Blair Witch, Cannibal Holocaust, Ghostwatch. We look back on these things, and we almost pine for these days where people still had that element of naivete, or that the internet hadn't completely purged all sort of wonder from our brains. Like, we still like thought like, well, maybe there's still that element of maybe in the world. And I think we look back and we kind of wish for these days to happen again, even though they never will, because we become more jaded and more, I don't know. We think we know everything more now than we ever did, right? Oh, how could they have been so stupid back then to think that was real?
Yeah. It's like, but they did. They did. Ghostwatch, they did. Blair Witch, they totally did.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe one day people will be able to have kind of the wool pulled over their eyes again, but it seems unlikely. I think
you could get away with it on a TikTok video.
Yeah.
I think you could shoot a TikTok video and it would be short enough, and there wouldn't be too much detail, like a 30-minute type thing or whatever, but 2-3 minutes where people go, I don't know if that's genuine, and you could probably get away with it on that. But as a found footage movie or a TV broadcast or so, maybe a TV broadcast you could, but it wouldn't be as easy as it was in the early 90s with Ghostwatch, or 99 with the Blair Witch, or anything like that.
Yeah, it's a shame. I guess it's a shame. I think it's cool it happened. Not for the guy who killed himself, I guess, but it's really interesting, and Ghostwatch was one of those movies I had heard about for years. One of those things I'd heard about, like, but it was just not available. It was not available, and then it became available on Shudder. For the first time in North America, it became available on Shudder some years back. I remember I was visiting Lydia before I moved to Canada. I was just visiting her, and we watched it on her TV. I was like, that was totally worth the wait. Like, that was awesome. And then we went to watch it a few years later, and it was gone. It was just gone. Like, it wasn't on Shudder anymore. Like, where the hell did it go? And once again, not available on disc anywhere. And then finally, of course, like a year or two ago, 101 Films put it out in North America, and I got a real nice box set of it. And just absolutely one of my favorite releases I own now, because it's like this sought after, UK experience. I finally own it. So if it goes away from Shudder again, that's okay.
You're fine. Again, physical media better tan streaming stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I mean, back in the early 90s, there was no internet that people could go onto, and was this Michael Parkinson thing real? And the newspapers were filled with it the day after, and the internet.
It's in the news. It's real.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's on TikTok, it's real, but back then it's on the news, it's real.
Yeah. It's so interesting, man. So interesting that happened at all. But I thought you'd get a kick out of their Ghostwatch episode. It seems like
I was
every Halloween
enjoying
somebody digs
the
it.
only episodes of Lydia's and Wes's that I don't listen to are films I've not seen yet. Because
Gotcha.
obviously they do delve into the storylines and stuff. So I've got a huge
Yeah.
backlog. I was listening to their commentary of Hellraiser
Nice.
the other night, which is good. So I subscribe to, I think, probably 15 podcasts.
Yeah.
Dead Air's one of them.
Nice.
Mine's another one, obviously. Gets an extra download. But a lot of the shows just don't, like you said, they don't put episodes out very often.
Yeah.
And it's
I think Lydia said they got the podcast fade. I think that's what she called it. It's like they start strong and then they just kind of fade out. So then once in a while they put one out. You just got to keep at it, man. That's all you got to do. And if your co-hosts aren't working out, maybe you got to get
another one.
Yeah,
I've had so many co-hosts over the years. I don't know how many, but it's probably about 10.
Yeah. I remember listening to the horror shows when I started listening to you, and Stu on, I believe.
And Lauren.
Yeah.
She just disappeared. She just.
Yeah.
I don't even know what happened to her. She just sort of. I don't know. Who knows? But Stu Miller and I are still hanging around. We've still never met.
Oh, that's funny.
We've had a lot of conversations. We probably live about 4 hours from each other, but in the UK, that's quite a lot. That's quite a big distance in the UK. In America, it's like or Canada, that's my drive to work. But over here, it's like no. And we do clash. We clash with our thoughts on movies and stuff. He often hates something that I think's great, but we never fall out about it, and it's always entertaining. I was ridiculous. Very happy that he enjoyed the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
We did a little short video on that the other week, which I emailed the PR company that's handling Blair Witch, and I'm like, have you got a limited edition set you could send me? Because I really want to do a review unboxing video, but I want to do it in the woods, like Blair Witch.
That's
so
awesome.
I'm waiting for a reply back because it's like a forest that's probably about 5 minutes walk from me, and I really want to do this like Blair Witchy type short film where I'm hunting for the best Blu-ray release, and I'm like,
that's amazing.
What's this little pile of postcards or something? So I'm hoping that comes off. We shall
amazing,
see,
dude. That's awesome. What was I gonna say? That's really cool. And I like it when you and Stuart Stu sort of clash here and there, because it's always respectful. And I think that's the main thing. Like, I don't understand why people would practically go to blows with somebody because their opinion is different than theirs. Like that's, and you certainly don't want to listen to people always agree with one another. I mean, there's literally no fun in that. So I think it's great when you guys disagree, because you call him out when maybe you think he's being overly critical,
most of the time.
But respectfully. And I think also just because you love something, he doesn't feel pressured to love it as well. So I think as long as everybody's coming from a place of sincerity, I think there's those people online that they kind of build up a sort of a reputation, or maybe it's in their head a reputation that they're the person that is always going to be mean about things. So they are maybe more harsh with some of their reviews than they need to be. But as long as people are being sincere, then sure, be harsh if that's how you feel you need to be. As long as you're coming from a place of sincerity and you can back it up. I think that there's maybe value in there for them, not necessarily for me. If I don't like something, I'll say I don't like it and move on. But that's all I need to say. But
I think that's algorithm based. I think though, because I had this conversation with Fraser. I think when Ghostbusters came out, he's a huge Ghostbusters fan, and I said, if you do 2 videos, 1, why I love Ghostbusters, and 2, why I think it's a big pile of crap and it's the worst film ever, I guarantee that hate one is going to get way more views than somebody who likes it. And I hate that that's a thing, but it seems to be. Anybody who does this clickbaity, DC have ruined movies, blah blah blah, and then people gravitate to. I'll gravitate towards listening to somebody say nice things about something that they liked and I liked. But there are a lot of people who would rather listen to just hate mongering, and I don't know why, but they do seem to. It seems to fuel something in them.
Even just the way, I've seen it a lot in another kind of big fandom area of consumerism is video games, right?
Yeah.
And you got people that will absolutely die for the video game they think is the best, and you're the enemy if you think it's crap, or you're the enemy if you think it's good, whatever. And I noticed this, like, basically the last month, October 8th on, I was playing a lot of the Silent Hill 2 remake. And Silent Hill 2 is like one of my favorite games ever, my favorite horror game ever, so this remake, I was very much looking forward to it. I thought it looked great. Early on, a lot of people were saying it didn't look good. They were worried it was going to be like, oh, it's just a action game now or whatever, and this development team doesn't know how to make a Silent Hill game. Their games so far haven't been anything good, blah blah blah, just really mean. And of course the game came out, and guess what? Most people really loved it. It's awesome. I think it's better than the original, and I don't say that lightly. I love it. I've absolutely loved this game. I'm playing it through for a third time right now because I'm going to get all 8 endings.
8 endings? Wow.
Yeah, it's either 7 or 8, because I know it was all the original endings and they added 2 new ones. And I've seen one of them so far, and it's awesome. And at least one of the endings they added is really good. But I've noticed, that was all kind of a long preamble, but I've noticed on YouTube there's a lot of videos that are up, because I've looked up some Silent Hill 2 stuff, so now I get all these Silent Hill 2 things flooding my feed, and a lot of the videos are titled similarly, where it's, we need to talk about Silent Hill 2, and it shows like the person doing one of those stupid poses like this or something like that. Yeah. And of course it's supposed to mislead you into thinking this is a crap game. They're going to tell you it's a crap game, so the masochist in people is supposed to kind of convince them to click on it so you can watch them talk about what a crap game this is, even though you think it's a good game, just so that you can see how wrong they are. And so I tested the theory. So I clicked on like 3 or 4 or 5 of them, I forget how many, and every one of them, even though the image was meant to convince you it's a bad game, and they're going to tell you why it's a bad game, it's actually them telling you what a good game it is.
But by that time, they've got the view.
But they've got the view, right? So they're literally like betting on people's, like I said before, people's bloodlust, people's desire to see things torn apart. And they're betting on that, and to get you to basically fool you into clicking on their video so that they can tell you what a good game it is.
It's just a weird way of life, though, isn't it? Not for the person creating the video, but for the person watching it, going, "Oh, somebody's about to complain about something. I need to." Why? It doesn't make your own life. We were talking about blood pressure earlier, an hour and a bit ago, where surely it's not healthy going, "Oh, somebody's going to be mad about something." It can't be good for the brain or the blood flow or whatever.
No, I don't think, probably a lot of people are realizing just the stress they're actually putting themselves through every day when they reach for their phone, but it's sad. It's sad that that's kind of where we've gotten to, and it's just, again, people counting and betting on people's desire to embrace more negativity. So I guess that's where we're at. But I don't want to talk too much about all these awful people anymore. I will say that new Silent Hill 2 is awesome. And if you are looking for a good scary game to play the new Silent Hill 2. It's incredible.
I mean, it's a remake. How different is it from Silent Hill 2?
I mean, it's ground up. It's what Resident Evil 2 remake was to Resident Evil, 2, the original Resident Evil 2. It's in the Unreal 5 engine, so it looks just phenomenal. But graphics are one thing, but the sound is great. The gameplay is very tight. It really walks the line between your character feeling like when he takes one of the monster nurses down, and he's stomping on her, because you have to stomp on these enemies so they stay down. Like you really feel it. Like it feels like you're doing these motions. Like there's a real sort of tangibility to what you're doing. But it doesn't veer too far into like action territory. This isn't an action game, and you'll probably miss more shots than you'll land when you're firing
like my gameplay to be
because I always try to, like, there's like a trick with a lot of these monsters. If you shoot them in the knee, if you do that enough times, they'll take a knee, and then you can run up and hit them with your bar, because it's a survival horror game, so you got to conserve ammo, right? It can be challenging in spots, but they really nailed. I mean, the story is the same. They didn't mess with anything. They didn't mess with anything that is like sacred. They kept it all where it should be. They added some things, but they didn't really take anything away. And most importantly for me, they nailed the feeling of Silent Hill as a town, from like the first 3 games, basically back in the day. That all felt like one town, whereas all the games they did after that, like where different teams were working on it, it just felt like a different town every time. It never felt right. This feels like this is how Silent Hill should look and should feel like. It's more explorable, and then when everything shifts over into the other world where everything gets really nasty and rust covered and all the metal and everything, it is like the best representation of that, because now the tech is where it needs to be to show it off, like in high fidelity, right? It can be quite stressful at times, especially when you're like feeling around in the dark and you can hear things moving like around you, but the soundtrack is so unsettling on its own that you don't know if it's just sounds or if it's literally like a monster that's like about to come get you. You don't know. So it's absolutely incredible. What they pulled off there is, it's probably my favorite game of the year, and I wasn't really anticipating it would be. It's only on PS5 right now. Maybe I think it might be on Steam as well. Yeah. But as far as consoles go, I think it has a year exclusivity on PS5. Okay. So yeah, it's if you're up for a survival horror game, it's well worth it.
How would that be in VR too? Do you think? That would skyrocket blood pressure, I'm guessing.
I saw somebody must have modded it or something on PC, because I did see a little clip of somebody playing it in the hospital on YouTube, and it looks pretty intense. I don't know how well it works because it's obviously modded, but I did see some VR footage of Silent Hill 2 remake.
You're like, no. I played some of Resident Evil Village in VR. I think that was VR 1 I played that in, and I do want to get back into some VR, but obviously feeling ropey over the past 3 months. Last thing I want to do is put a headset on and go like this. Yeah, it'd probably make me vomit, but whatever. But I'm from VR 1 to VR 2 is a big leap.
Yeah.
There's not as many games out for VR. There's a lot coming now, but previous to this month, there wasn't as many as there was for VR 1, but
I still want to get a VR 2 one day.
It's really good. I was playing Arizona Sunshine 2.
Yeah. I've never seen a video of you playing that a couple months back.
And I like playing video games, but I'm not an expert, so I'm not like, I'll finish this in 6 hours. So I'm a kind of a novice at playing them. Sure. But the gun control on it was spot on. It was distant stuff, and the controls are so. The VR 2 is really.
Isn't Resident Evil 4 remake on VR 2?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good one to play. I mean, Resident Evil 4 remake is so incredible on its own, but I would love to play that in VR. Yeah. I played Resident Evil 7 in VR on the original PlayStation VR, and that was awesome. I mean, that was definitely the best game on that system. So. And
there's a Walking Dead one, Saints and Sinners, which is pretty good. I'm not very good at it, but
I would love to play that.
I wandered around. I'm like, this is really creepy.
I want to play the Horizon game on.
I do.
Yeah, because I love Horizon. So
we need to win lotteries. That's what we need to do. Win lotteries, then we can just buy all this stuff, and we could do it all.
I don't know. There was a while there when, typical Sony fashion, unless it's like a mainline PlayStation system, I always worry when they put out these additional systems, whether it's a handheld or VR, because they seem to drop support pretty quickly on them. Yeah. And VR 2 is not cheap to begin with. No. So I was like, I really would hate to buy this and then a year later there's no more games coming out. Luckily for me, I didn't have the money at the time to get it anyway, so I didn't get it. Do
you think you would have?
I probably would have, sure, for Horizon alone and the Walking Dead game, absolutely. But it seemed like things really slowed down for about a year where there was just nothing coming out. And now, like you say, it seems like there's more coming out. So I would feel better buying one now because I think there's enough games out now and enough coming to justify the purchase of it. Yeah. I don't have the money for it right now, and that's fine. But so one day.
Go over to Bandcamp. Everybody's listening. Go over to Bandcamp, buy some of your CDs. Buy some your
money.
Buy your albums.
I need money for prescriptions and PlayStation VR 2, I guess. So.
Yes. But yeah, there's a lot of games that you can get. and then you just build up your stockpile, and then if Sony go, yeah, we're not doing VR2 anymore, you go, well, I've got a big stockpile of games that I'm fine with until I get bored with VR. But I bought it on day one, played it for a bunch, and it's been sat in the box for 4 months. But I wouldn't want to get rid of it because I know that at some point I want to get back into it and just... There's a kayaking one. It's just I'm just floating in a kayak just through the Antarctic, and you're like, this is great. It's relaxing.
Yeah, yeah. VR is so cool. It's and I hear the new one is a lot better with the whole motion sickness.
Yeah, it is.
Thing because the first one, man, I remember playing a game called Here They Lie when the PlayStation VR 1 first launched, and within 20 minutes I was nauseous as hell. And it was apparently like one of the worst games for that, only I didn't know it. So
until you take the headset off and you're like, oh,
I'm like, maybe VR isn't for me. But then you know what? When I played Resident Evil 7 in VR, I was actually fine. So I'm like, so what did they do differently? So, but I hear VR 2 is a lot of people who couldn't play the first one due to motion sickness, like they can play this one. So
I haven't had any motion sickness off VR when I did play it. Skyrim was the one that got me on the first one. I played a little bit of Skyrim and I'm like, oh, I feel awful. So I just didn't play it again. For some reason, that really brought on motion sickness.
I think lower res graphics make it worse.
Yeah.
And because I found the lower res graphics games like Skyrim, because I had that as well, I felt it way worse, way more acutely. So so and I obviously the games on VR2 all look pretty astounding. So so I'm looking forward to it one day, maybe in a year or two. I'll be able to
treat yourself.
One. I mean, I'm not going to be getting the PS5 Pro. I'll tell you that much. So.
No, me neither. No,
they're out of their goddamn minds.
It's like, who thought? Yeah, go with that one. That's a good idea.
Like, I bought a PS4 Pro when it came out. I loved it, but at the same time, you know, I'm sorry, I do not have $1,000 to spend on a marginal upgrade for a system I already own and not even get a freaking disk drive or a stand with it. Are you out of your minds?
Yep.
They're completely out of their minds. But like people have been saying a lot online, I guess this is what no competition looks like. They can basically do whatever the hell they want, and people are going to do it. And people are going to say, "Oh yeah, that's fine."
I'm not.
I'm not.
I'm like, nope.
Sorry.
If I don't know. If you had $1,000, what would you spend it on? I don't know what I'd spend it on, other than house bills.
If I had $1,000, if I had $1,000 and I didn't have to spend it on bills,
no bills. The bills are
no
already
bills whatsoever.
Sorted.
I would probably buy a really nice amplifier. I wouldn't buy a marginally better version of a PlayStation 5 that actually has less features than the one I currently have.
No. I think physical media probably I'd buy.
Yeah. Or a bunch of freaking movies. That'd be awesome.
I got this sent through the day. 4K of Nightmare on Elm Street.
I've been looking at it the entire time we've been talking because I literally just 2 weekends ago, literally 2 weeks ago today, I picked up the Steelbook version of Elm Street 4K. Yeah, we just watched it the other night. It's awesome.
It's good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Decent features on it.
Yeah.
I think the restoration looks fine.
I think it looks awesome. Yeah. I don't think it looks like. I mean, it's the best it's ever looked, but like, I mean, it's a 40-year-old movie. I mean, like, like, you know, it's like, be happy with what you got. And I know some people have been tearing it apart. It doesn't look natural, whatever. Then maybe you shouldn't be looking at 4K then, because like that's what a lot of these movies look like. So, whatever.
So I got that one. I think that's like the only physical media thing I've picked up recently. I've cut way back on spending because, you know, house bills and all that shit. But,
sure.
You know,
I have a couple. I've gotten a couple new physical things. I have a couple things waiting for me in the U.S. when I go visit my mother in 2 weeks. I'm going to see them one last time before the holidays. I basically had some like 3 days of float days I had to kill at work or I was going to lose them. So I figured, well, whatever, I can squeeze a quick trip in. And so I have a couple things waiting there for me because it's cheaper for me to send stuff to her house than to send it to Canada.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. So every time I go there, it's kind of like a mini Christmas. I usually have some movies and
give me
records waiting for me. Yeah.
But you're here to see us, Chris. Never mind. Where's my parcels? Let me get that first. Then I'll find time for you.
But I've been trying not to buy too many movies, and it's always tough this time of year because you know, usually September through October, all the good horror movies come out, or all the great horror movies getting their new releases. Like Trick or Treat just got its new 4K release and stuff like that. You know, so that I did buy, but and I did buy the Although it hasn't shipped yet. I bought the new 4K cut of Suspiria, the remake of Suspiria.
I've never seen I don't think I've seen the original Suspiria. I keep thinking I have, but then every time I see a clip, I'm like, I think I'm getting this mixed up with Tenebrae. I don't think I've actually seen Suspiria, so at some point I need to watch I'm guessing the original one is better, is it?
You know what? They're very different movies.
Okay, so watch both.
I would really recommend watching both. When I was growing up, I didn't really have much of an appreciation for Italian cinema, and especially Argento. I just didn't understand it. Then when I got a little older, I watched Suspiria one day. I'm like, you know what? This is actually kind of cool. Like and now I actually really like Suspiria quite a lot. And then when the remake came out, it's a very different movie. It's taken from the same story, but it's a very different movie. And I think I like it more than the original.
Okay.
Now that's me. Lydia, who does not necessarily like the original Suspiria, we watched the new one when it came out, and I think the first thing out of her mouth after it was over was, well, I think I like the original Suspiria a little more now.
Oops.
So it's going to hit people differently. I think the new one's really good though. But it's not going to be for everybody. So
I think we've all got things where we think, I need to watch that at some point. And Suspiria for me just seems to be one of those, because it's not, I don't walk into a shop and there's a Suspiria Blu-ray there. It's not one of those, you've got to go hunt it down if you want to get it. It's never on TV or over here anyway. So it's just never crossed my field of vision. But at some point I'll tick it off my list, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool movie. But again, like, for the people who don't like it, I understand it, because I was one of those people. Like, I didn't like it when I was younger. So, and I don't really consider myself, despite being of Sicilian descent, I don't consider myself a huge fan of Italian cinema. Like, I love Demons and Demons 2 and, some of these other movies here and there. But for the most part, like, it's not like French horror, Spanish horror, Mexican horror, or even English horror, or Chilean horror, or all this horror from all these different areas of the world. I have a much greater appreciation of it and love much more of it. Whereas Italian horror, there's really only a few movies that I like. So I'm a bad Italian. So
you're great Canadian though. That is that. You globally traveled.
Yeah, well, something like that. At least in film, I am.
So where are we up to with music? You mentioned music. We've tapped upon it. When can we, not to put a deadline on it, it'll be ready when it's ready.
It's ready when it's ready. I've been so busy at work over the past couple months that I haven't gotten to work on nearly as much music as I've wanted to. That's what I'm doing this weekend. After I'm done talking with you today, I'm going to start recording. I have a new song started, but I haven't gotten to get back to it in like probably about a month. So it's just kind of been sitting there. So I need to really kind of work on that. And then, so basically I have like 3 more songs I want to get written. One of them's already started, and then I want to rework one of the other songs. So it's going to take me a bit more. If I could just kind of chisel out some time where I don't have work demanding quite as much of me, because I've been doing a lot of traveling, as I said, and I think that's more or less over, at least for the next few months. So I'll be home more, which is good. I can focus more on that, but it's like anything artistic, like, you don't want to do it if your head's not in it, because then you're just gonna do crap. Like, you're not.
Well, that was a bit like me last week when you said you were free for podcasting. I felt lousy last week, and I'm like,
sure,
I could probably put a headset on and hold a conversation, but I wouldn't be quite up to this speed, and therefore we'll do it today, and that's why we're doing it today. Perfect. But yeah, if your head's not in it, you can't. You're ruining what you're trying to do.
I'm gonna, then a week later, I'll listen back to what I did, what I spent like 9 hours working on. I'm like, this is garbage. Like, I'm not gonna do anything with this. So, and I tend to use just about everything I make, but if my head isn't in it, if then my heart's not in it, then, I heard a line from Chuck Palahniuk, the author, years ago, where somebody asked him, and it's similar. Somebody asked him, how do you combat writer's block? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you get through it? And his answer was typical of Chuck Palahniuk, the man who wrote Fight Club. It was, it was something to the effect of, do you take a shit when you don't have to?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, then don't write when you can't
Yeah.
write. Like, it's the same thing. It's like, and it's the same for me. Like, if I'm not, in a headspace where I feel like I'm going to create something worth a damn, then I'm not going to even bother.
Yeah,
I'm not going to bother getting everything set up and just go through the motions, because it's not like I have a record contract where I have to put out music.
Well, then it becomes a whole different thing then, doesn't it? It's like, Chris,
Right.
we need this out by Monday. You're like, oh, now I need to push through this musician's block. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's a different outcome. But
Exactly. But no, I work on my own, and sometimes when I get in the kind of groove of things, it just pours out of me, and I'll have a couple songs done pretty quickly. Other times I might be sitting for a couple months with like a minute of music that I'm just not able to get back to, or I don't feel like I should work on. So, but you know what, I want to have it done soon, because I like to always kind of be putting out something new. I do. And or at the very least working on music. If I'm not working on music, that's honestly the thing that bothers me the most. So it'll be good today to kind of get back to the grind. So,
well, it's winter. I've been sort of banging on about have a winter project, because nobody goes out for the day when it's freezing and cold. And
sure, yeah.
I've got like 3 winter projects that I'm doing. You've got your winter project. So mine I've got 2 documentaries that I want to edit and put together. Obviously the PR thing, which we'll see how that goes. So that's my 3 winter projects. You've got your music.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've got some exciting stuff that you don't talk about on YouTubes and all that sort of stuff, and your projects with Lydia and stuff like that. So
yeah, I want to. It's good to stay busy. It's as I get older, I realize it's important for my mental well-being to know that I am creating something.
Yeah.
Even if it's not something that necessarily I'm able to release or do anything with in a public way, the releasing of that art is. I realized, like I asked myself the question, like, why do I put music out if like nobody really like not many people even know it's there? Like, what's the purpose of even doing that? And then I realized, well, the reason I do that is because that's how I've always enjoyed music. You can only enjoy music if it's out, and so I'm creating the music that I want to hear, and the way that it's validated by me putting it out in the public space, right? So eventually it'll get to that point, but for now I just gotta sharpen it to a nice little sharpen the edges up a bit, and it'll be hopefully something people enjoy.
And don't worry about any delays, because you know what, The Cure took 16 years to do an album.
Sisters of Mercy still haven't put out an album. It's been like 30 years since the Sisters of Mercy put out a record.
Pure laziness. I still listen to Sisters of Mercy stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
they're fantastic. But really, I mean, like, he'll never put out another record. Like, no. So it's like, it is what it is. But so yeah, if something, it's now officially over a year since I put out the last record, and honestly, the first 7 months I probably didn't even do any music whatsoever.
Has it been a year since that launch party?
Yeah, it was I believe it was the 30th of October, wasn't it?
I was talking, I think John Fouts on the last podcast about the fact that it was great that you were there and people could ask you stuff and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And I would never have guessed it would be. So if you said to me, when was it? I'd be like, was it like April or something this year?
Yeah, it was right before Halloween last year.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I remember I didn't want to do it on Halloween because I wasn't sure if people would like be going to parties or whatever. So I was like, let me do it on a night when hopefully everybody's actually home.
Yeah.
But I think it was the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that was super cool, and I'll definitely do that again because even I enjoyed that. It was like just enough people for it to be manageable for me and for me to not feel like overwhelmed. So it was great, and it kind of when I was listening to the music, like that I've spent so much time with, but listening to it with other people more as like a fan of it. Obviously, I made it, so I better be a fan of it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't like this album. Who made it? I did. What?
You're kind of hearing it differently then. I'm no longer listening to it and noting every little imperfection that I can't stand. I've hopefully fixed all of those things, and now it's just this cool record I did. So I'm looking forward to doing that again. That was a good time.
So as long as the next one isn't called an album of imperfections, then we're all good. We're doing okay.
We'll see. We'll see. I gotta figure out a way to, again, sort of balance everything I'm trying to get done, of course, work and everything, and then, obviously, I'd like to play video games and watch movies and stuff. So it's always sort of like well, do I feel like making music today, or do I just want to veg out and watch like 3 movies? So sometimes, again, if I have a day where I'm just watching 3 movies, I try not to beat myself up too much about it, because I figure I probably wouldn't have written anything good that day anyway. So
sometimes you've got to go, you know what, life could wait till tomorrow. I'm just going to play video games or watch 3 movies or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you could go on the internet and argue with strangers about movies that, you know, that they don't like. You could do that. I wouldn't recommend doing that. It's a waste of time.
Nah, I'll just smash my head up against the wall here in my house. I don't need to go online and do it. It's all good.
So, well, I'm going to let you go for now
and
go make some music. I'm very excited.
I am.
And I'm going to introduce Annette to possibly Trick or Treat, because she's never seen it. So
the Sam one.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's never watched
it. Not the
other one. The one that was before that. Yeah.
The one that just recently got a re-release, I think, or something like that. I don't know. But no, that's phenomenal. We actually didn't watch it for this Halloween, even though we always do, because the 4K one is out and it's at my mother's. And I'm like, well, I'm going to want to watch that as soon as I get it. So we'll just skip Trick or Treat for this Halloween, and we'll watch it in a couple of weeks and have Halloween Part 2.
Just continue it into November. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
We're actually doing that right now. We watched Terrifier last night. We're going to do Terrifier 2 tonight. I have that new 4K cut of The Crow that I've been holding off on watching. And it's technically, it's...
Is this the Alex Proyas Crow?
Yeah. I don't think the new one's out on Blu-ray yet, is it?
No, I don't think so. Yeah. I like the new one. I thought it was fine.
Yeah. It didn't look interesting to me, so I'm not going to watch it. I told Lydia, like, if it's available for free, I'll watch it.
It's a curiosity watch. You go, I'm going to watch it. And you watch it and you go, I'm glad I've seen it. And then you move on to something else. But it's different. It's very, very different from the Brandon Lee Crow, which I love that film. So
sure. I love the Brandon Lee one as well. I'm really excited for this 4K cut. I do love Danny Houston. He's good. Yeah. So I'll be very happy. I hear he's kind of underutilized in it, but I want to see him in it. So I like him. He's great. So and I was like a Skarsgård, so we'll see how he does. So
I enjoyed it. Yep, the internet burned it to the ground, and Lionsgate didn't make lots of money from it, and but that's pretty much the year of Lionsgate, I think, at the minute, with Borderlands and
people wanted to hate the Crow, though. I mean,
they did.
Years, while all the different remakes were happening, and they were always just like, people were just flaming everybody involved. I remember Corin Hardy was doing one, and Jason Momoa was attached to being one of them. Maybe it was the Corin Hardy one, I don't know. It was just
I think it was. Nobody
was happy with any of it, and I think it was probably a foolish mistake they did it at all to begin with. But whatever. I would bet that a good portion of the people who were tearing it apart did not see it. So
no. They didn't. Like, as soon as the poster came out, they were like, right, let's go after this film. And you're like, just watch it. But I thought it was fine. And I watched it and we're like, that's good. And I still love the original one. So
it doesn't destroy your love of the original, right? So
nope, not at all.
So I'm looking forward to this new 4K cut, though. So we're going to keep Halloween going throughout November. So I'm excited. So.
Good. And I will tell Paul Hyatt, and I will let you know what he says. But I'm pretty sure, knowing Paul, he will remember you. So
awesome. Well, I hope he does, but if not, tell him I said hi anyway. So
I will indeed. Yep.
Stuart, great chatting with you, man, as always.
As always, Chris. You good luck with the music, and thanks, if you end up watching 3 movies today, make sure they're good ones.
Always do.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
See ya.